Hey there, it's Michael. Welcome to Whole Again, the show that's here in support of you creating a meaningful life and the person you're becoming. And I'm excited to share a new series with you that will air this summer as America turns 250 years old, which is still pretty young relative to many other countries across this big blue marble that we all share. The series is called A Perfectly Imperfect Union. In 2022, I rode my bike across America, from Astoria, Oregon to the Lincoln Memorial. My wife drove our RV, and she had two co-pilots, Jester and Hope, two Springer Spaniels. And when we did it, America was coming out of the pandemic, and we were hurting from things that had happened prior to the pandemic. Of course, going through what we all went through. And at that time, and this is something I still believe today, is that we were entering an inflection point. An inflection point for us to hopefully pause, breathe, and reflect on who we wish to become as individuals, as communities, and as a country. As I pedaled across America, I wanted to share America's beauty with others, her natural beauty and the beauty of her people. And I also wanted to share where we were hurting. As America turns 250, I believe Kinstugi, which is something we use as a metaphor here at Whole Again, is a perfect metaphor for where we are as a country. There's so much beauty to celebrate, and we can also acknowledge that parts of us feel broken or are broken, but we can find a way to come back together, just like Kinstugi teaches us. And when we do, we don't try to erase or cover up where we have scars or blemishes. We highlight them in gold, and we celebrate them as symbols of our strength and resilience. Kinstugi is called the golden repair, and in essence, we can see beauty in something that's perfectly imperfect. During this series, I plan to speak to at least 2 people in each state and the District of Columbia. So 102 conversations with real folk, as I like to say. We're going to let the celebrities and the big influencers have their day somewhere else. But here, I want to reach out and talk to real people and listen to their reflections as they think about America turning 250 years old. And my hope is that you'll tune in to at least one, if not all 102. Because my theory going into this is that you'll hear different perspectives. Some may be aligned with yours. Others may not. But my hope is that you hear the goodness in your fellow citizens and realize, as Maya Angelou shared with us, we are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. We are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. I've had the privilege of traveling all over the world and all over this country. And this belief is something that I hold deep inside of me. So yes, I do believe that we are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. So if you're ready to get to know one of your fellow neighbors, take a healthy breath in and a slow releasing breath out, and get to know Ken Lubin. Ken, my friend, thanks for joining me here on A Perfectly Imperfect Union. How the heck are you today?
Doing good, doing good. It's summertime. I'm up in New England. I'm on the coast of Maine right now, so can't really complain. You can probably see the reflection in my slider behind us, but it's a good start to summer.
That's very good. I love the state of Maine. It's some good weather up there between now and like September 1st, and then you got to get really comfortable with the cold. But still, like Maine is a state that not I don't think everyone's been to, but I think it has some really cool vibes to it. So before we get into it, why don't we take a moment to introduce you? So can you
Yeah.
take us into your introduction, and when you're not in Maine, where are you usually living?
So, a little intro of me, 25 years. I've been in executive search in the executive recruiting business, lifelong athlete. I skied D1 through college. I still coach ski racing now at our local ski hill for the high school. I still, probably train 6 days a week, strength training, riding my bike, running, that type of stuff. So fitness and being strong is a big influence on my life. Like every other 53-year-old, you're probably running into a little, menopause versus menopause, right? So there's some of those changes that are happening out there, but just trying to really keep going. So probably the best way to put it is, athlete on one side, business guy on the other side, and try to really integrate the two of sort of the mindset and keep everything moving forward in that, in sort of that same direction.
Very cool. I can appreciate your feelings around the menopause. Something happened in me when I hit 50. It was almost like a birthday gift, almost like, oh my God, what just happened? There's a whole bunch of different things happening in my body. So I can appreciate where you're coming from. So when you're not in Maine, where are you usually living?
Yeah, so my residence is actually in central Massachusetts is where I'm located. It's a small town called Princeton. We've actually got a pretty cool little ski area called Wachusett Mountain
Okay,
that's
yeah.
local to us. So we do spend most of the afternoons on snow. Like I say, I coach the high school ski team. So on snow 4 days a week, then on the weekends up in New Hampshire, either backcountry skiing or, doing a lot of side country type stuff. So it's move from winter to summer. It's not a bad thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm going to have to do some digging on this one. I'm not sure if you know what came first, Princeton, Mass, or Princeton, New Jersey.
I don't know. Probably Massachusetts because we're sort
I'm
of.
gonna have to. I ask you that out of curiosity, not to make it a trivia Jeopardy show, but
I'm thinking,
I'm
up
thinking
here because
Massachusetts. Yeah, I'm thinking
probably
Massachusetts,
a
and then
little
New
bit,
Jersey borrowed it.
yeah, a little bit more, history in Massachusetts, and I think probably, New Jersey. It's, Massachusetts is sort of the place, as we all know, sort of everything started from,
Sure.
sort of that, rebel mentality a bit. But yeah, I don't know. Good question, but I know Princeton, New Jersey has
Yeah.
more
Well,
people, so.
yes, we'll have to do some digging. So, what is something cool about the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for those that haven't been there yet in this country?
I love the fact that you've got the mountains, you've got the ocean, you have, Boston 50 miles away. I think, the town I'm in, there's probably more cows than there are people, right? So the thing about Massachusetts is it's what people really think of, Boston or the Cape as being Massachusetts. And there's so much more to it. The North Shore is all rocky. Out where I live, I live at our altitude's over, 1,000 feet where I live, that type of stuff. I think, the people, it's people say that people in Massachusetts, they're kind, but they're not nice, right? And I think that's probably the best, description of it, right? It's, they're the people that are going to make fun of you for driving into a ditch, but they're the same guys that are going to pull you out of the ditch at the same time, right? So, you know, I like I like the intensity level, I think is probably the other thing. Education in Massachusetts, I don't know if most people know, but it's the number one state in the country for education. I think that goes a long way as well. So, And then there's, a lot of people talking the downside, taxes and cost of living and everything else. But, the way I look at it is, you don't have to send your kids to private school in Massachusetts, right? So you
Hmm.
sort of, you make it up on the taxes on the other side.
Yeah, yeah. As long as the taxes are going to something good, I don't mind. I don't mind paying the taxes. So I love it. I love this. Love the Commonwealth. We have family that comes from there. So I've spent many a summer through the state and from the western part in the beautiful mountains of the Berkshires all the way out to P-Town on Cape Cod and places in between. So let's say you're up in Maine though, right now.
Yeah.
Maybe you're devouring some Maine blueberries and
More lobster,
or
more
lobster.
lobster.
You're
Yeah.
gathered around with some friends and family and they ask you, "Hey Ken, what does America mean to you?" How do you respond?
It's right. Yeah. I think everything's interesting right now. I think there's a
Sure.
lot of divisiveness, and it's not just this administration, it was last administration as well. Yeah, everyone's quick to blame what's going on today, but there is every time we have issues, right? And I think it's understanding those issues, but sort of just having a bit of grace. And I think, there's a lot of keyboard warriors that like to, comment on things and just get people riled up. But the question is, are those even Americans that are even doing that, right? Because I think a lot of times, what we see in the news or what we hear on the internet or any of that, we don't really know where it's coming from. But one of the things, we always hear fake news. And when people say fake news, it's very one-sided. And I don't believe it's one-sided. I believe it, fake news comes from both sides, right? And I believe that, there's always something in the middle. And I think right now, America, there's amazing possibilities. It's still the best country in the world. I think, the opportunity is there for everyone. So it's yours for the taking. And instead of complaining about it, go actually, go create something with what you can.
Absolutely, absolutely. So do you know much about your family's origin story to America?
So on my father's side, I believe my grandfather, they came over from Lithuania. So they came over Lithuania, Lubin, but the question is what name, they all came to Ellis Island and they had some really long name and they all left with four different short names based
Yes,
on what was happening there. Um, and then on the other side, more sort of England, Scotland, Wales, that type of
the
stuff.
UK, all that.
Yeah, sort of
Yeah,
UK.
where a whole bunch of us are from. I know, personally speaking, that's my DNA map to England and to Ireland. So I love it. I love the story. Thanks, Ken. Thanks for sharing that. So I imagine this hits your industry and your profession, AI, as it comes to like AI and search and we can't really escape a escape a day without some type of conversation around AI. And I know everyone has some feelings about it as we try to get, I guess, comfortable or knowledgeable about it. Where do you stand on AI?
I'm a fan of it. I use it every day. I use it for efficiency. I don't think, again, sort of the propaganda around it that it's going to overtake the world. I don't
It's
believe
going to
that at
eat us all
all.
up. Yes.
I think sort of AI right now is sort of the third, web 3.0, where the first part of the web was static web pages, right? They
Hmm.
weren't very, you didn't really connect. It was sort of just magazines on the web and,
Sure.
rudimentary shopping. I think web 2.0 was the world of social media when Facebook came on board, Instagram, LinkedIn started with MySpace. That's really where the internet really became interactive, right? And that's where, I think is sort of, driving what's going on now. But I think, sort of web 3.0 is AI, right? Is it going to take everyone's jobs? I don't think so. I think it's still not 100% perfect. I don't think it'll ever be 100% perfect. I think it augments, writing, it augments legal, it augments, financial services, FP&A, that type of stuff. But it still needs to be checked. It still needs to be verified, right? I think there's going to be a whole industry of people verifying AI is sort of going to be the next thing versus AI taking over the world. I think as we know, the trades, right? The trades aren't going to be affected by AI. The trades are going to be affected by AI because they're going to be creating the things that help build AI, right? Data centers, fiber optics, all that
Sure.
type of stuff. I think, AI is really, like I said, it's Web 3.0. It's something that we're going to use to augment. I love the fact that, it allows us to do things that we've never done before, or allows us to build things that have never been built before, right? I think, AI is, the only limit is imagination. And, hopefully people use it for good versus bad, but everyone's always going to do it for bad. But bad's been around since the beginning of time. So,
Yep. There will always be bad actors out there. Hopefully, enough good actors rise up and uh, shape shape our future, shape the country, shape AI. One person that's really close to me. She's in the camp of, I don't like AI. I don't want to deal with it. I don't like it. I don't want it. Just the other day, she was like, you know what? I know I say a lot about how much I hate AI, but this one thing about it, this one thing, I actually do appreciate it. But it really helped me out. And I'm like, well, that's a start, right? And so we have to start somewhere. So that leads me to my next question for you. I use the Japanese art form of kintsugi as a metaphor for this series, as well as my overall whole again podcast, knowing that we'll have times where we will literally or figuratively break, but we can come back together. Instead of hiding our scars or our blemishes, we highlight them in gold, and they're part of our resilience story. So with the country being divided as it is there something, Ken, that you would like to address? Maybe not in a perfect way, maybe it's perfectly imperfect, but a meaningful first step to help us reconnect and grow and heal and find a better spot. What would that be for you?
I think just take the emotion out of it, right? And
Mm,
be willing to understand. I think so many people are, on one camp or the other camp that they're not even willing to listen to what the other camp has to say. And I think that's a key, is to get a good understanding of their beliefs, right? Because people, on one side or the other have beliefs that it's going to help them, right? If the more I'm right or the more I'm left, that it's going to aid in my life. And as we know that that's not happening, I think there needs to become a happy medium, right? There's always equilibrium in everything. I think, like I said, the first Trump administration went far right, then the Biden administration went far left, sort of back, far right, but it seems a little less far right this time, even though, you see the rhetoric out there, but I think people are getting tired of it, to be honest with you.
yeah.
I think, people are just starting to live, and they're starting to say, hey, let's just sort of move on. I see more of that, sort of in the Northeast. I don't know how it is in other parts of the country. But I think there's, that's a big piece of it. I think people are just accepting of others' opinions. I know myself personally, I used to, like, hey, let's talk, let's not get in fights. I would always be curious to see, but then my passion one way or the other would come out. And it would be, I think it's sort of being passionate for being in the middle, right? Because, everyone thinks you need to be passionate one way or the other, but you can be passionate to being in the middle as well. So I think that's, where are we going? I think overall we'll probably end up, 90% of everything, 95% of it is good, right? 2% or 5% is, is what everyone focuses on. But if you really focus on the 98% that's good, you're much better off.
Yeah, I hear in your response a need to really listen to connect and understand versus listen to reply or react, which seems to be the MO for Uh, Not everyone, but a lot of people, at least a lot of people that generates all the churn and the kerfuffleness and the news cycle. And I'm with you. I think people are just tired of being tired with like all of it. And we see it in employee engagement data. Everyone's just maybe, to use this word, drained. Like it's like, can we just stop and we can find a way to move forward together? It's one of the reasons why I'm doing this series. It's my move to turn off the news and just connect with real people and have these conversations. So I appreciate what you're sharing there in your answer, Ken. So we get to a birthday, and usually people have cake, and this was actually a big bias of mine because when I came into this series and came up with this question, I was like, well, everyone loves cake because I love cake, right? And so I've learned that not everyone digs cake, and not everyone's serving cake for America's birthday. So what if you are into cake? What kind of cake are you serving for the birthday? And my whole prelude to that question, this question is an opening that if you're not into cake, you can offer something else. So, what are you serving up for the celebration?
I think probably, yeah, a good beer, right? A lot of the same
Okay.
ingredients that go into cake are the
Yes.
same thing that go into a good beer, right? So I think, that's always a good thing to do, enjoy a beer on the water, enjoy a beer in the woods, your backyard, wherever it is. And it's, that's probably the best thing to do. I love cake as well, but
Yes.
sometimes it's just good to, sit down and enjoy your beer.
Over a pint with a friend. So what kind of beer are you pouring then?
Yeah, it's an IPA. Up here in Maine, there's a company called Maine Beer Company that's by far one of the best beers I've ever had. So, and the brewery's right down from us, and a lot of people will know about it. There's a beer called Lunch that is now becoming more, it's spread beyond New England at this point, apparently. So, yeah, one of those.
All right. So what I'm picturing, Ken, is a nice picnic right there by the Atlantic Ocean. Again, those listening can't see the view. You mentioned it up front. So I see a nice IPA, maybe some corn on the cob, some lobster, and maybe a blueberry pie for dessert at your picnic. That's what I'm thinking. So very cool. So I've asked the person before you, Kristen from Washington, a question. So her question to you is, if you couldn't live in Massachusetts, where would you live in the country?
Pacific Northwest. It's, very similar in terms of geography, access to mountains and ocean and adventuring, right? Those are the big one, those are the big pieces that I like. We went on a tour of the Southwest, sort of southern Utah, Bryce Canyon, Zion. It's amazing, but it's not green enough for me. I like the green. So my daughter went to University of Utah for a year, and then she came back to New England. She's like, it's not very green, and in Salt Lake City. So she was overwhelmed by how green it was when she came back.
Wow, very cool. Well, if you
Yeah.
hit Portland, you can go to Mount Hood and you can ski all.
No, Utah, University of Utah. She
Oh,
was at University of Utah,
Utah.
not Oregon. The
Okay.
Utes.
So the
Yeah.
Utes. But if
Yeah.
you do go to like Oregon to live, if you happen to like get into the Pacific Northwest at Mount Hood outside of Portland, you can ski year round. So you can go down into the Hood River Valley. You could do a little windsurfing, and then get up at like 9,000 feet, I think, or 10,000 feet, and do a little skiing. So which would probably make for a very good active day for you.
My daughter's actually, I skied there in the 80s in the summer, and my daughter's gone to multiple ski racing camps out of Mount Hood. She loves it out there. It's super cool.
That's my state. My wife is from Oregon, so the other side of Portland. So where she grew up, she had a beautiful view of Mount Hood when the days were clear and not a Pacific Northwest cloudiness. But I love it out there. So, what question would you have for the next neighbor I chat with in this series?
I think probably what are your beliefs of the future, right? What do you think is going to happen next in the US, right? Is it going to be more divisive? Is it going to be more unified? What are your thoughts?
All right. I like that. Well, I'll definitely ask that question of the next person I talk to in the series. But I want to thank you, Ken, for joining me here and helping us become a more perfectly imperfect union. And I appreciate the ripple effect that you're putting into the world. And again, thanks for joining me, brother.
Perfect. It was a blast.
Be well. Peace. Love the fact that Ken went in a completely different direction. No one else has gone there and said, no cake. Let's just grab a beer and have a conversation. And that lunch from the main beer company, I picked up a 6-pack, and I will say, I'll validate Ken's answer. Pretty good stuff. I also love his question around where do you think America is going? So I would love to know how you would respond to Ken's question. You can put it in the comment section below, as well as anything else that came up as you listen to Ken's reflections on America now that she's turned 250. I hope you'll check out the rest of the series as we march towards Election Day here in the States. And you'll check out episodes of Whole Again and share an episode or two with someone you know. But until then, let's remember to celebrate our scars as golden symbols of our strength and resilience. And don't forget to have fun storming the castle. And if you wish to learn more about creating beautiful ripples and how to prevent a bad moment from turning into a bad day, please visit my website, michaelobrienshift.com, and sign up for my newsletter called The Ripple Effect. And join us each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday here at Whole Again and discover how you can heal, grow, and become more resilient, and celebrate our scars as golden symbols of strength and resilience. Until then, remember, you can always come back to your breath. You've got this, and we've got you.